same call together, so that's a good thing. But now those calls have to be even better. Not only get out, get in, they have to make sure they're executed even better in these team fights.
And execution is definitely going to be on the lookout for the side of Elevate, because they want to execute this second game and make sure they take a clean 2-0 of this set. And with first pick going their way, they're actually opting to take away the Susanoo immediately.
And this time, Strictly Business probably need to ban away the Cabrakan as well. Luckily enough, Elevate have banned Susanoo for them, so take Cabrakan off the table for Strictly Business, and then give Elevate an even playing field. It does leave Zeus open, though.
Zeus might be on the table still if Strictly Business were to opt for the Cabrakan ban here. And there it is. They want nothing to do with the Cabrakan, just too much setup, too much in your face. And I do like the adjustment to the bans.
This could potentially be the first upset of the day, though. That's the key here, is that Elevate are not expected to beat Strictly Business based off seeding. Elevate came into this a 5th seed out of North America. Strictly Business were 2nd seed. And right now, Elevate are 1 game away of knocking out that number 2 seed of North America.
And you know what I really like about Elevate's first pick choice here is we just saw Checo's phenomenal performance on this Medusa, but that's not necessarily a dual lane Medusa. And picking it for the first pick, I mean, you have tons of setup control. It's got fairly strong lane dominance at the starting points, so it could potentially even go to the mid lane.
Well, we get to see a Fafnir for the first time this LAN so far. I mean, we saw quite a bit of it from the Gauntlet side of things, but Fafnir back in action now, and I'm surprised they didn't look for that potentially last game. Like the adjustments, though.
Well, we did see the Fafnir from Young Homie earlier today,
right.
But he didn't necessarily have the greatest success on it, but hopefully Strictly Business will be able to potentially pull this one back out. And if the Fafnir execution is combined alongside of the Bologna setup, then that could really turn teamfights in their favor.
Really surprised to see Elevate go back to that Vulcan again. Obviously, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But at the same time, Zeus was available. They could have locked down for himself, and with a Khepri, Zeus-Khepri Medusa combo is a fantastic starting draft for them. Went for Vulcan, which is a little bit more tricky to execute, but if it goes off and starts going well, it'll be fine.
I think a large portion of that is also due to the fact that Baronic seems to have made Vulcan a bit of a staple character for himself. It's certainly a guy that he seems to feel the most comfortable on, and in a LAN environment, comfort is probably what you want the most, especially considering how well his game #1 performance was. Because even though he wasn't necessarily finding the pinpoint Vulcan ult every single time, he was forcing actives and he was landing the rest of his kit, and that's what really matters.
And zoning matters too, but Elevate should ban Zeus here. The other reason I'm saying Zeus again is because against Vulcan, it's a good matchup for Zeus to be in the chain line, bounces to the Vulcan and the turret, which means the turret isn't as useful for a Vulcan as it would be. There should be a Zeus ban for me right here.
I would like to see a Zeus ban as well, just because even though Elevate could potentially have a strat against the Zeus, which is perhaps the reason why they've let it come this far already, it's still an unnecessary risk. Like, there's just so much potential for the Zeus burst to come through, effectively pull the Khepri ult from Elevate, and then without that Khepri ult, and even if they force it, you still have Thanatos lurking in the air, and there it is, the Zeus ban.
I'm pretty sure Strictly Business now may look towards Scylla as the mid lane option now, with Poseidon taken out as well. There's not massive amounts of mid laners really available for them. I like the fact they went for Anher now to hold, just to check where that Medusa's going. Obviously, it's more than likely in the Hunter role with Vulcan being drafted in, but I think they can hold off and wait for the last bits of comp before they work out which mid lane they want to throw in here, Strictly Business.
Plus, you also just, we don't have a solo laner locked in quite yet for the side of Elevate, and so putting the Anher locked away, that's a fairly safe Hunter pick to deal with vast majority of solo laners. It's got excellent shred capabilities, especially depending on what kind of build you're opting for. We've seen a lot of the players already today leaning more towards the transcendent side of things, and Anher is certainly a guy that loves going 1v1, and that's exactly what you need to do, I think, against Checo.
Definitely, and with Checo playing the Medusa now, I think the Anher pick is the right one. Elevate really going to have a good, hard think about this, because they need a solo and a jungle here. Vamana for the solo lane, not a real surprise there. And the Morrigan coming out. Okay, that should be a jungle Morrigan, I'm guessing then, which isn't something we see too often.
It's not something that we've seen very often, but I absolutely love the selection here for the Morrigan, because now they're going to have the availability for potential double revive from Khepri. You've also have the double Vulcan ult, but more importantly, that double Medusa ult could be absolutely devastating in a team fight environment, especially if they keep taking up fights in those narrow
But you're talking about what the Morrigan can do with gods on her team. If she turns into Thanatos, she's going to get an execute, which means Elevate have an execute on their team too. Not only that, they also have an I'm a Monster faster in the late game if they need it. So a lot of versatility with this Morrigan pick. The problem being, though, is how well the early game goes.
Well, I'm definitely excited to see how this one is going to pull out. And Andy, who do you think, looking at these two rosters right now, who's going home with this one?
I've got to go with Elevate here. I think they're the stronger team overall, and I like them more than Strictly Business. Kappa, we'll see.
Well, we'll certainly find out. And for now, we actually have Tolly and Agra to bring you guys game number 2.
The Morrigan here on console for Dr. L. I'm excited, Tolly, because just hearing what they were saying on the desk, so much versatility from this pick. It's all about how well Dr. L can play with all of the options available to him.
So many options. So many, like Global Ultimate on the Thanatos.
Sure.
You can even go Guard. Like, we haven't seen Morgans go into the Guardian, but imagine a Fafnir Ultimate for Elevate with their composition that they already have, right? They have the Vamana and the Khepri for that frontline. Morgan can provide you that burst damage with just her regular abilities, but then transforming into the Guardian, now the rest of your backlines can just keep following you up.
That's true. I mean, transforming into Fafnir could be really, really good as the Morrigan, because the biggest problem with Fafnir after he transforms is that his cooldowns are a little bit long, right? But you just de-transform at that point. You just turn into Fafnir, throw your 3 abilities, ult as Fafnir, throw your next 3 abilities, and then you turn back into the Morrigan and you're good to go.
So then you have 10 abilities, and then once you go back into the Morrigan, you have 3 more. So you have about 13 cooldowns in about 25 seconds worth of time.
That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. Excited to see what Dr. L and the rest of Elevate can do this time around. A little bit surprised to see that Baronic goes back to the Vulcan, even though it was really, really strong in game 1. Elevate had the opportunity to go for Zeus instead, but electing for the more late game oriented option, at least this time around. Dr. L and Baronic should get the majority of the pressure here in the mid lane. The 2 ranged auto attacks, so key just in terms of getting early pressure.
Especially utilizing that passive out of the Morrigan. And I feel like Baronic went for the Vulcan instead of the Zeus, just having more space control with that turret to be able to secure some of these objectives. But it was really smart for them to ban away the other option.
Reminisce getting very low in that solo lane. Does have a health pot, and of course using Thanatos' innate sustain, courtesy of his passive. Going to be able to heal up if he can find some jungle camps to clear out, but Elevate's taking care of that option. Speed buff already stolen. Delny gets the enemy blue as well. Elevate off to an excellent start so far in this one.
Not looking too good for Niquid and Reminisce, still sitting in that soul lane, and with right side mid Harpies along with the Fire Giant Elementals. Elevate are literally commanding every single camp in that soul lane. However, they will lose their red buff in the process.
Michael Checo trying to get off to as good of a start as he did last time around, where he ends up with a quadra kill at the end. More importantly, a W for Team Elevate. Checo, a LAN newbie. This is his first time here at LAN, but you can see how excited he got after just 1 victory. Are you concerned at all about someone who, maybe get a little too hype here at LAN?
No, not at all. Considering that they only have 1 best-of-3 set today, they can focus all their efforts on this match against Strictly Business. And then if they do win this next game, relax, look at the next set, who's going to be the winner between Obey versus Optimus. And that's, considering the way he poised himself during the comms at the end of the last game, despite being a necessarily LAN rookie, he's not playing like one at all.
Not yet, at least. Chovanis in that duo lane side, poking his head over there. He's the one with the red buff, actually. He ended up picking that up off of the invade. Both left side buffs still standing here for Strictly Business, but they're more worried about this contestable objective, the Oracles. They've stayed standing for quite some time, usually taken off the map by the 2.5-minute mark. But SB's got a lot of farms still available onto the map here, Tolly.
Considering that they invaded the red buff earlier, they wanted to min-max the red buff to make sure that they would have it ready for the next red buff invade. But surprisingly enough, it was Chilvanis that picked up the red buff, whether or not that was intentional. A Fafnir with the red buff does a little bit of extra damage, but taking that away from Mr. Teep on the Scylla and Keji on the Anhur, you're not having the same kind of impact.
Mr. Teep had a good early game last time around, but fell behind in the mid stages, ended up being pretty far behind in terms of just level and XP. Do you like this idea to put him on a later game character like the Scylla and hope that his early game might not be as impactful, but that his late game will be significantly better than it was last time?
It's all about the executes here between Reminisce and Mr. Teep. One is lethal, the other doesn't have to be, despite whichever one it is. If you can find Reminisce to land on the target, get the death site, Mr. Teep can easily follow up with the Ama monsters. Now, the early game versus late game conversation for Mr. Teep is fine as long as he can find those executes. Strictly Business have to coordinate together to get the ball rolling.
Right now, Elevate's got the ball in their court. They won game 1 of this set, and as Tolly mentioned, they will move on if they can find this W to face the winner of the defending world champions, Obey Alliance, and Optimus Gang. Optimus Gang now the only hope for Europe, as Rival got eliminated by Soar in the set previous to this one, so going to be a lot of European eyes on that set. But Optimus Gang, they've got a tough task totally up against Obey.
Not an easy task to take on the world defending champions out of Obey Alliance, but either way though, back to North America, Elevate versus Strictly Business. Still in game number 2 here for Minimark. A lot of action in the solo lane thus far, as Elevate are looking to consistently invade. This is the second time thus far that they're invading the solo lane.
Yeah, Dr. L gets the speed and the blue with the help of Delny, and so what you expect to be the Thanatos getting pressure on that right side early, it's actually been taken to him. Gold Fury thought about getting started up there by Strictly Business. Well, Strictly Business thought about starting up the Gold Fury. That objective usually doesn't have a say in what's going on. It just kind of follows the rules. But that ward there from Elevate, enough to dissuade SB from hanging out around that corner trying to catch a member of Elevate unsuspected.
And Strictly Business are positioning themselves looking for these picks, but not fighting is Elevate because of the perfectly positioned ward right on top of the Gold Fury. Not too many sentry wards this early in the game, so you can get away with a regular ward just right on the Gold Fury pick, because that's a very common spot that you will decide to ward, so sentry wards are very common in that area just to prevent you from having that vision.
Is this slow start to this game more beneficial for Elevate or Strictly Business? Because they both have some good late game options.
I believe that it's going to heavily favor Elevate on this point, because despite having Mr. Teep on the Scylla, we're seeing a Morgan for Dr. L who can easily take the same option. Thanatos is going to slowly fall off in the late game. Medusa is going to do more work than the Anhur will at that stage anyway. And Baronic's not going to fall too far behind in terms of the damage output.
No, certainly not. Vulcan, not usually thought of as this late game hyper carry mage, but can absolutely fill that role just in terms of his regular abilities, let alone that ultimate that can absolutely just one-shot someone in the late stages of the game. Almost 6 minutes in here, both teams still content to just farm up their waves, but Elevate getting the slightly better end of that farming deal. Only up about 800 gold, but that's before any first blood shenanigans really come out. It really speaks to the amount of control they've had on that right-hand side.
Just a slow and steady climb for Elevate between the gold and the experience department. More of it is on the solo jungle side, as Delny has this one-level lead over Nikwid playing the Bellona. And we saw what Delny was able to do with the Bellona despite being behind. The question is, can Nikwid do the same thing in game number 2 here?
We talked about Nikwid playing a lot of Guardians coming into game number 1 where he piloted the Hercules, but back in Season 3 when Nikwid was still coming onto the scene, Bellona was one of his signature gods, so you know he's pretty comfortable on it. Excited to see what he can do with it this time around. Dr. L looping around the back here. Keji doesn't know this is happening. Love the idea from Checo to play it normally. There's a stun coming out of Dr. L, who then transforms into the Medusa. 1 petrify, 2 petrify. Dr. L knocks down Keji for the first blood.
What happens when you turn around from one Medusa? There's another Petrify waiting for you right around the corner. You're guaranteed at least 1.5 times the damage of the Petrify damage. But look at this, Delny, he could time this. There's no mana for Nikwid.
Oh, but Delny doesn't have any cooldowns. It was so unfortunate, almost able to find the solo kill there, but Nikwid does have that teleport available, so he's going to be able to get back without losing too much farm on that right side.
The timing, though, not really favoring out Delny because the Gold Fury is being started, the rotation, trying to defend the speed buff. Kenshi looking for a potential pull, but a nice little disengage from the Fafnir.
I liked the idea there from Elevate. They knew the speed buff timer and they knew Reminisce would be there trying to secure his first one of the game, so they head over to that Gold Fury side, but SB knew exactly what was going on. So Reminisce basically just ends up getting his own buff for once, as Nikwid actually got his own buff as well. Delny started it up, but got it stolen away by the solo laner.
Nice teleport from Nikwid, being able to secure his own buff. Amana still with a cooldown of about 70 seconds of that teleport. The rest of his teammates able to secure those Fire Giant Elementals. Not able to really continue the pressure, trying to go for that bigger objective in the Gold Fury instead of the more guaranteed ones. I'm thinking that they were more afraid of Strictly Business potentially sneaking that Gold Fury instead.
They do have a lot of vision on that left-hand side, though, Toli. Look at the ward coverage here for Elevate. They've got one on the top left Harpies. They've got one around the Gold Fury as well. Have the opportunity to burst it down with this composition, especially if Dr. L wants to teleport, transform into someone like Michael Checo or even Keji, who could help them burn that Gold Fury, or maybe even Chilvannis on the Fafnir, give his team a coerce buff to try and knock down that objective quicker.
Also, Fafnir provides a lot of in-hand damage in that Draconic form. It wouldn't be a bad idea. Honestly, there's a lot of options once those cooldowns are not available any longer. Chilvannis trying to contest those Oracles, but it did go in the way of Elevate. Gonna have the vision for a little while, so that means they can extend in the mid lane or any side lane, despite not having to worry about Strictly Business sneaking that gold.
Last time around, it was Dr. L who was a little bit behind Reminisced in terms of farm. This time, Reminisced is a little bit behind, but Checo's got to be worried about who's coming behind him in this lane. Almost catching out there is Chilvannis, but able to dash away. Checo going to stay safe and let SB know that he's not scared of whatever they're throwing at him. Throws a couple chuckles their way.
Just a little bit of a giggle from the Medusa player, and I'm really surprised at how effective that earlier gank was from Dr. L with Michael Checo, and I really would like to see that more pressure onto Keji, because last time it was Michael Checo that got ahead in that duel lane. This time it's been the opposite story. Keji's that one level advantage because of just how much pressure Elevate has been putting in that soul lane.
Gold Fury down to about 50%. Reminisce still in the mid lane trying to handle it. There's the ultimate on Barada, but the Gold Fury gets leashed away. It's completely healthy. Chilvannis up into the Draconic form, but everyone from Elevate just decide to back up. I'm a Monster was used there by Mr. Teep to try and steal that Gold Fury away, but it just went back to its pit. No one was in leash range.
Elevate used 2 ultimates, while as Strictly Business only invested 3. Delny trying to contest those elementals as the Fire Giant is spawning at the 10-minute mark. Still a relatively good game for Elevate, getting off to a nice little early start here, but no real response from Strictly Business as they're able to hold on to the Gold Fury, but not able to make any offensive plays quite yet.
Oh, no one really in position right now to defend this totally. Mr. Teep is close, but doesn't have that I'm a Monster. Dr. L immediately goes for him and gets those purification beads with the 3 aspects. Keji's here, but also doesn't have that Desert Fury. Dr. L uses the Changeling to turn into Medusa and force out Keji with the Petrify. Gold Fury goes down in favor of Elevate without any real bloodshed.
Great zoning and great vision on that solo lane, recognizing the fact that Nickwood was still there without the teleport at that time, was able to invest all of their resources onto that Gold Fury. Dr. L even investing into that Medusa to be able to zone out Keji, and with that Portal Demon, at least Strictly Business get a little more gold in their pocket.
Delny almost got the objective and the kill on the Nickwood, but that meditation coming out from Chilvannis saves the life of his solo laner, who almost has the chance to get a meditation of his own if he so chooses, though could be Thorns like he went for last time around. Again, this Mystical Male build when you're behind is it can be difficult to finish off, though we saw how big of a power spike it was for Downey in game 1. This time, Nickwood going to try and get the same sort of boon whenever he finally finishes it off.
An aggressive option for Nickwood, but even more aggressive is Dr. L going into the Doom Orb out of the jungle. Normally we see this in the mid lane when the front line pressure is available to make sure that you're not the one that's taking a lot of damage, but out of the jungle, sometimes it's you that's required to initiate, and that's a lot of confidence coming from Dr. L, especially considering he used to be the soul laner that was playing a lot of Warriors and Guardians, now playing a squishy mage.
Yeah, the Morrigan with Doom Orb, just one of those. Morrigan sometimes fills the role of initiator out of the jungle almost, using that stealth and getting in there with the stun. Doom Orb not going to be able to save Dr. L's life in terms of any protection. Most Morrigan jungles we see go for a kind of bruiser hybrid build, a lot of boots into Dynasty Plate Helm into Voidstone sort of options, so definitely a risk here for Dr. L, but on the plus side, the Morrigan does a gross amount of damage. She can really burst in the late stages of the game. Dr. L is trying to get there a little bit sooner than most Morgans do.
Absolutely. The risk versus reward has certainly paid off thus far for Dr. L, is that he has that 1 kill onto Keji in that gank, in that dual lane, as well as helping out get that Gold Fury. Not to mention, with the amount of burst damage coming from Dr. L, he could also look to go for a tankier option once he goes into that ultimate. He has so many Guardians to choose from.
The other thing is that in the jungle, Doom Orb, you don't have a wave to farm up consistently. You're only getting a couple. There's a stun on a Reminisce. They had the knock up as well. The backfire, not quite enough to knock up down, but Baronic was looking for the ult. Can't quite find it. Reminisce going to be able to get out of danger thanks to that meditation again from Chilvannis.
But Reminisce does have to back, which gives Elevate a 5-on-4 advantage in the solo lane. Meditate being popped by Kenshin. Delny going into the big baby, and just like that, strictly business, they couldn't contest that tier 1 mid tower.
500 more gold goes the way of Elevate. Their gold lead now about 3,000, despite only having 1 kill. Just all around the map, the objectives seem to be going Elevate's way without SB really saying much about it.
All calculated tactical maneuvering just to apply a little bit of pressure onto the jungler, getting him out of danger, and with a 1-man disadvantage, strictly business didn't want to commit in a 4-on-5 disadvantage, allowing Elevate to get that 500 gold. But now they're not getting anything in return. You know, there was 2 ultimates invested into that play. One from Vulcan just to try to get the kill, and one from the Vamana to ensure that tier 1 tower. So with a 5-on-3 ultimate advantage, strictly business needs to capitalize on this difference.
I think that Kenshin is a guy we talked a lot about in Season 3, taking a lot of these rookies, bringing them to land, showing them how it's done. Got a lot of praise for it, but he didn't have the same success early on here for Elevate in Season 4, but this game really, I think, speaks to what Kenshin means to this team. The veteran presence, the calming veteran. You could hear everyone else on Elevate yelling when Checo's getting the quad, and Kenshin's still calling out targets for him to hit whenever they're knocking down the Titan. Really, really impressive play thus far out of Elevate.
That's usually how most Guardians are, honestly. They're just like zoned into the action. It's like, I got trips, I got taunts.
Oh, we're all doing Jeff Hinla now?
We got to do the Jeff.
I love the trips and the dubs. It's just like, that would hype me up, man. If I just heard trips coming through, like I'm playing Zeus, something like that, and you get the trip taunt, I'm in, bro.
It's like you're in a casino and you're pulling down the lever.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, Jeff should come and cast my casino playing days. Those are gone though, because no more casinos for me, at least for now. Right now, Elevate up 1-0, 15 minutes in. Not a lot of fighting in terms of player damage or kills on the board, but quite a bit in terms of throwing their weight around the map, and Elevate has certainly looked to do that early and often. Their team comp, at least according to my man Mr. Tully over here, is favored in the later stages of the game, so the fact that this is playing out pretty slowly is not a bad thing for the team in blue.
Especially with Kenshin having this Rising Dawn to mitigate a lot of the damage from strictly business. A Meatball not on the mark to be able to steal away the red buff, but posturing around the red buff and the Gold Fury is Elevate with it now respawning.
Actually, that Meatball knocked the red buff out of leash range and made it immune, so even though Bronic doesn't get it, almost made a cheeky little play. That Doom Orb, only 39 stacks, and Dr. L hasn't been dead or getting those stacks reset. It's just taken him this long to get up to that number. And again, it comes back to the fact that there just isn't a consistent wave for Dr. L to farm up with that stacking item. So still trying to get the most out of his Doom Orb. Gold Fury gets looked at by Strictly Business, but again, just without an advantage, this is a tough call to pull this objective against a team that has a slight lead against you.
The gold deficit and experience. Kenshin finding the pull onto Nickwood, taking a lot of damage from that Meatball. Backfire getting rooted into place, but going into Dr. L, into the Bologna. Eagles rally in the backline. Mr. T, Reminisce having to go in the air.
Oh, Nickwood's gonna fall. Number 2 now for Elevate as they march on down the middle lane. Chilvannis gets exploded by that Dark Omen from Dr. L. 2 fall, the tier 2 tower in mid likely to follow as Elevate continue to blank Strictly Business. Keji finally shows up to the party, but it's far too late.
Way too late. Great recognition from Dr. L going to this aggressive frontliner Bologna. We were talking about just how squishy this Morgan really is, but when you're going into the Bologna, it doesn't really matter, especially when you're going into one that has these items available to you. The Eagles rally, you're using the aura now from your opponent to your team's advantage, so Delny and Michael Checo get those protections and damage.
Teep has to beat and get away, just watching Elevate secure another Gold Fury, number 2 in this game. I think that brings him to 5 or 6 total in this set. Elevate's objective control has really set them apart from Strictly Business so far in this quarterfinal matchup. 6,000 gold in the lead now.
And this is a difference of a 6,000 goal lead this game compared to the last time that they had this kind of a lead, which was about the 24 to 25 minute mark. Elevate are really escalating this game at a very rapid rate with Portal Demons still available. This is going to be the next option.
Look at how much HP Dr. L just got from one back. He was sitting on that fortified scepter for quite some time. Backs, gets the Ethereal Staff complete, and almost finishing off what's likely to be a Polynomicon. Scary stuff now that Morgan's going to hit even harder after finishing off those Doom Orb stacks. Nickwood gonna eat the stun coming out of Dr. L as the rest of his team focused in on the Portal Demon. Kenshin there trying to get into it. Let's take a listen to SB as they try and take the fight to Elevate.
They're gonna get it.
Yeah, they just got it.
Can you hit Donnie?
Donnie's throwing stuff. My bad.
They're gonna push left here. Good med.
Big damage. They're grouping left.
I still have execute. They're gonna come to we look for one hit. Yeah, on me. I got Morgan.
I have book.
I have execute, but checker's not even low enough.
We were supposed to be listening to SB, and we were. That's who we were listening to, but all I could hear is Kenshin in the background saying, we can fight this, keep going, constantly just pushing Elevate forward. And you gotta give shoutouts to Dr. L, the former solo laner, transforms into a solo laner, and then just lays it on the table for SB to just back up because they can't handle the Bologna even when they're on their own team.
Just reminding everybody that, hey, I am still a solo laner, zoning away 4 members while the rest of Elevate was able to take away the original Bologna of this game. Nickwood was in a really bad and awkward spot, not really having the sustain available to their team compared to the last game as Chilvanus is playing the Fafnir now. As the poke kept getting heavier and heavier, everybody just wanted to disengage from strictly business. All their ultimates were invested towards the defense, only Reminisced having that hovering death, but didn't even use it that whole time.
Game 1, it was Dr. L kind of falling a little bit behind. It was Baronic and Michael Checo really setting the tone and winning that game for Elevate. This game for me, Toli, Dr. L has been all over the place. He's been setting up for his team, and his just general attitude in this game, no fear, going in, stunning the opposition, building Doom Orb, because he doesn't care about the damage you're doing to him. I absolutely love this game out of Dr. L.
The trust in your teammates has to basically go so far to like the next Cosmos to invest into a Doom Orb out of the Morgan jungle, because what if you die then? Where are you getting your stacks? But it doesn't matter because of the early start coming out of Elevate. They were able to successfully constantly invade the speed and the blue on cooldown for at least the first 2 to 3 times, and that's what really shut down Reminisced and Nickwood in the early stages.
Tier 2 towers traded out on the left and right by Elevate and SB, but Keji's in a lot of trouble on that right-hand side, chased down by Delny. The Aegis buys him a moment. It does have the purification beads on cooldown as well. 20 more seconds till those are good to go. Look at Baronic wrapping around the back. Delny gets impaled there. Desert Fury coming out from Keji, but he's trying to do as much as he can before he falls. Delny ultimately does chase him down. Baronic helps knock down Teep as well. Both fall on that right-hand side as SB still without a kill. 6-0, 21 minutes in. Elevate up over 10,000 gold.
Elevate going off of the mid Phoenix, recognizing that, hey, if we get these 2 picks to these people that just got our tier 2 tower, we can get the better objective on the Fire Giant and then secure that middle Phoenix anyway, having no fear. 5-on-3, securing the Fire Giant, very low, having to retreat is Nickwood, using that Eagles Rally along with that Meditate, but the rest of Elevate, they're grouped up, not going to chase this out despite having the 2-player advantage, instead looking to invade the blue and then look to regroup in mid.
Patient play coming out of Elevate thus far. Again, the calming veteran presence from Kenshin, definitely a big part of what allows Elevate to do what they do. Right now, they're trying to move on and play in that semifinal match. They'll be awaiting the winner of Obey and Optimus Gang if they can close out this game. With the way it's been going, it looks pretty likely. SB does have an opportunity, though, if they can win a couple team fights in the later stages of this game. That right side Phoenix is exposed, Toli. And sometimes when you get really deep into the game like this, well, not like this right now, but like we saw in Soar and Rival, all it takes is one team fight win to really knock down the Titan.
That's true, especially when you have a late game with damage. If you survive a team fight while deciding your opponents, it doesn't really matter if there's 4 towers remaining. You just go down that right-hand side, the Titan exposed. After that, Phoenix gets demolished, and there goes the victory. But getting to that point is going to be difficult because Strictly Business are going to have to deal with a 13,000 gold deficit and a Fire Giant gathering of Elevate.
Boronic and Checo both have red buffs available to them as they they siege down this left side. No more towers remaining anywhere on the map to defend SB's base. They got to rely on the Phoenixes and the Titan. Niquid has a lot of HP in that build, but Checo doesn't really seem to care. He's got that crit anyways. No chin size for the Hunter, who has had a much more quiet game than game 1, but not in a bad way. Sometimes you just win the game in different ways. Don't have to do the same damage every time. A lot of damage there onto Chilvannis. Boronic certainly swinging at this stage of the game.
Nice little slow from Delny. Not wanting to commit quite yet until the wave crosses that line on the left. Chilvannis using the ultimate, diving the backline is Niquid with the Eagles rally, trying to defend. Dr. L, though, taking a lot of damage. Vulcan over the top, not really connecting on anyone.
But it creates enough space for the left side Phoenix to fall. Dr. L finds number 3 as he finds Niquid with that kill. Aegis saves the life of Checo from that I'm a Monster. Dr. L in trouble from the dunk down from Reminisce, but not enough to find the kill as SB still with a big old goose egg in that kill column thus far. Left side Phoenix down. Still 4 members here from SB to defend this mid Phoenix though, Toll.
But it's still Kenshin with his Scarab's Blessing. Didn't really respect the damage out of the Thanatos, taking a lot of damage. Pulled back in is Kechi, but focusing the mid Phoenix. Checo finds it. The meatball knocking out the Honor.
Nice and spicy. Boronic finds number 8. Reminisce finally puts SB on the board as Checo bites off a little bit more than he could chew. But only one structure remains standing, and that's this right side Phoenix. Kenshin does not have that ultimate any longer. But look at Boronic's positioning, coming behind Reminisce there. No one gets punished for that aggressive play. SB trying to hold off the siege. Elevate looks like they still want this.
They want it, but they don't have Michael Checo for another 30 seconds. That's a lot of damage that's not going to be available for this right side Phoenix. Delny leading the charge, diving the backline. Is Niquid getting stunned out in the blotch, knocked up as well, having to retreat.
Kenshin is in execute range. Reminisce finds him. Number 2 for the jungler. Delny zoning away the rest. The Vulcan ultimate out of Boronic is big, but not big enough. A nice root crush combination from Teep forces out the Aegis, and Boronic, Dr. L, and Delny forced to turn tail and run. They get no right side Phoenix damage, but both in the mid and left. Couple kills, but not enough to finish off the game.
Training out Kenshin for realistically nothing in advance, just going for a damage check, I think, more than anything else. If they win that fight, they win the game without Michael Checo, but they don't really lose too much. Only Kenshin down for another 10 seconds, but the difference between Kenshin's respawn timer and Fire Giant is about 55 seconds.
So plenty of time for Elevate to regroup around that objective and snag that Portal Demon away, giving them an extra avenue back if they get low in any given engagement around that right-hand side. I don't mind that call from Elevate to try and push that Phoenix because they do have Dr. L, who has the Polynomicon. They can really augment that tower push from a distance, not the usual physical assassin who has to get right up next to that Phoenix. You've got a couple members with the ranged auto attacks. Double Obsidian Shard as well as a lot of damage with that Fire Giant buff. Either way, Elevate doesn't get that right Phoenix. They will get this Portal Demon Fire Giant due to respawn in just about 20 seconds.
And with this portal, able to go back to base to pick up some of those 500 gold potions, along with the Sentry Wards, makes it very difficult for Strictly Business just to leave their base. Both their left and mid lanes are exposed. Fire minions constantly flooding down the lanes, having to defend that by at least 1 person per lane means only 3 people from Strictly Business can realistically defend this, at least safely.
Well, I don't know if they're even going to get a chance totally, because Fire Giant's respawn, and Fire Giant, it's almost dead, already to 50% within a few seconds of spawning. No one from SB on screen even trying to get in there and steal away the objective. 5 more members with Fire Giant for Elevate. Dr. L going into that stealth, trying to find anybody who might be out of position. But SB knows they could only sit in their base and try and defend against this last siege from Elevate.
It's looking really good for Elevate as they're about to close out this set and move on to tomorrow's semifinals. Strictly Business, though, this is do or die for them.
Let's listen into Elevate as they try and move on to the semifinals.
Trust me on this, guys.
You don't, yo, Ryan, just use the icon freely.
Let them send somebody left, and then we go in.
Vulcan's gonna, I mean, Dan's gonna own here.
Look at the left Phoenix. Look at the left Phoenix.
Yeah. Go in here, go in here, go in here, go in here.
Okay, now, this is over there. Grabbing it.
I one shot. Wait.
Come on, let's go. I'm at it.
End the game, 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 end the game.
Let's go! Let's get it, boys!
Behind, behind.